Welcome back. You're watching the commodity trade here. Now, let me bring Prathamesh Malia, the chief analyst at Angel Broking, into the conversation here. Prathamesh, welcome to the show. Let's straight away talk about the oil prices here. What's the good strategy on the oil, and what's the take on the inventory data here? What actually one should be going for a trade bias in terms of next few sessions for the oil prices here?
Hello, Piyush. Good afternoon. I think oil prices from here on would possibly correct toward downside. Take into consideration the refinery that would go on maintenance in March and April, and besides the inventory being building up in US. So I think these are two factors which would possibly pull down oil prices. I think crude oil March contract would be sell at 4030, for stop loss would be 4090, for target lower towards 3930. So I think I would be seller at this level, or even if the prices go possibly higher. So sell on oil.
Right. Any sort of variation or fluctuation which you anticipate because of US Fed? We are just having a run up towards the US Fed meeting here.
I think US Fed would possibly create an impact on the precious metals per se, and I really don't think it will have much of an impact on oil prices, because I think the straight forward it would create an impact on dollar. I think rate hike is something which is possibly factored in. I think it would definitely have an impact on precious metals and not on oil to that extent. So I would really not factor in the rate hike and the oil prices volatility if you're talking about this particular week, the 21-22 meeting.
So interesting point for our viewers. Again, if you're looking at US Fed and sort of volatility around that part, then perhaps oil prices could be providing some insulation. That's what again Prathamesh is saying about. But then let's also talk about gold and silver here, Prathamesh, where also it appears actually you have bearish views, and in particular you just highlighted that again gold and silver perhaps could be actually seeing that sort of volatility. What's the view here? And number two, I want to ask you, is it something you are anticipating that dollar perhaps could be increasing from here, that's why being very bearish on gold and silver, or you perhaps think there is some selling which is coming here?
I think it's a combination of the dollar theme which is there since the start of this year. I think the dollar strengthening is something which we see for most of 2018, and I would really not rule out the fact that dollar index is rising from here on. So again, that factor, yes, dollar index and inverse commodity correlation, especially precious metals, so that holds true, and that is silver, both the commodities. And second reason being rate hike. Yes, rate hike is something, in a scenario of rate hikes, you will not really see gold and silver rising much. So I think even for gold and silver, I would be sell at higher levels. Entry points would be for gold, April contract 30,400 is the entry point, 3550 is the stop, target lower towards 30,100. As far as silver goes, May contract short at 3800. The stop loss is 39,200, target lower towards 38,000. So short on both the metals.
Right, again, that's actually the view on the oil and the precious metals here. Now, let me actually welcome also here, Prathamesh, coming back to you on metals. Over the last few sessions, very slow but consistent drift, lower drift across the base metals here. Whether again we're talking about copper, we're talking about zinc, aluminum, there has been a lower drift here. So, what's your pick here? And number two, what's the general bias actually you're picking in terms of data here? Inventories again have been picking up for again zinc and aluminum both here, and broadly again more supply coming into the market from China on aluminum here. So broadly, what's the take on inventory side, but also across what is the topic in the base metal here?
I think across all the base metals, I think I would actually bet on copper and leave all the metals if you really want to be sure of where prices are headed. So I think I would sell copper April contract at 453, stop is 456, target lower towards 455. As far as nickel goes, I think it is quite a volatile contract, trading close to the 900 mark, and then I think one can possibly go short for nickel. It's just for a day trade or two. I think 870 is what we're looking at as far as nickel goes. Lead and zinc for the time being I would really avoid, because zinc is almost corrected from 230 to around 210, which is a good correction. So I would really avoid zinc and lead for the time being. And aluminum, as far as aluminum goes, I think it's very stable around that 134 and 140 mark. So I would play this range as far as aluminum goes. So the best bet out of metals would be copper.
Right. Well, for our viewers, I think there is one thing I think which I have noticed from both our guests today is that both of our guests, Prathamesh and Sumit, they actually are giving sell calls across all the commodities, whether it's base metals, precious metals or actually the oil price here. So again, actually, if you are long, then perhaps be very careful. It appears to be consensus opinion that perhaps we are actually looking for a weak trade in the near term, in the very next few session here. So perhaps that's actually looking like a weak setup as we are moving towards the trade here. But then also, Prathamesh, coming back to you, just want to take an outside agri view here. What's the perception on the sugar and soy trade here? If you track them, I'm just taking my chance here, because again, if I take a look at the news flow, that tells me, or on the Argentina again, there's a drought scenario. The soy crop output perhaps that actually could be decreasing by almost 14% here. So that actually appears to be a serious sort of negative pressure for the soy crop here. What could be the impact on the soybean if you really track it? And the sugar also, it appears there is a lower production this time from the ISMA here in terms of India production here. So what's the perception on both the commodities if you track them?
Piyush, I think this is out of courage. It was better I would not comment on them. But yes, I would want to comment on the climate thing. I think very recently there have been reports of El Nino impact that's been happening in the Indian subcontinent. So I think the range is something which really would be deficit for this particular monsoon season, and I think volatility will remain from here on as far as agri commodity goes in India. I would specifically not comment on sugar because it is out of coverage, but yes, volatility remains depending on how the monsoon fares in the coming season.
Fair point taken, Prathamesh here. So again, one point is very clear, is that as Prathamesh was just saying, the weather perhaps could be a wild card here. But again, looking at the data point here, it appears there is going to be a sort of disruption in the soy crop output here. That's the news headline coming from the agri side here. But then, thanks a lot, Sumit and Prathamesh, for all the insights. It's very clear there is a sort of sell opinion, strong sell opinion across base metals, where again Sumit was just talking about zinc is short here, gold and crude are short here. So all three are sell strategies from Sumit here. From Prathamesh, again, he believes copper is short, crude oil again is a sell, gold and silver, they actually both are sell. So again, we actually heard across sell strategies from all our guests today. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the commodity trade here. News and updates, they're going to continue on the other side of a very short break. Thank you so much for watching us.